on the ground, Iraq, Afghanistan, and now there's the issue of Syria. And now, are you comfortable with President Obama's response to the threat posed by ISIS?
I'm troubled by the fact that we have now been at war for over a decade, that we continue to keep falling into these traps. And the issue of mission creep in the instance of Syria, specifically with ISIS, the potential is really it's a great concern, because we're already learning lessons from what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. The fact that we've got all of these troops coming home, that we don't have adequate funding to care for them properly, issues with the VA and with whatever other benefits these folks need, the support that they need. And we have to make sure that we're going into this with good intelligence, with a clear plan, with an exit strategy, and with a broad coalition of support. I believe that Congress should vote on this issue. I don't think that we should go in guns blazing and hope for the best.
What should be the criteria with these exploding international conflicts for, I'll use the term boots on the ground, American boots on the ground, if you're a member of Congress?
I guess it depends on, there are so many complicating factors. It depends a lot on whether there's an opportunity for diplomatic solutions, whether there is the potential for attacks on American soil, whether there are so many varying factors. It really depends on the individual circumstance.
Okay.
I think we need thoughtful leadership either way.
Okay. You mentioned campaign finance on your website. You would support a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because I don't believe that corporations are people. I don't believe that money is speech. And as long as we allow those things to stay as the status quo, then most of us, the vast majority of people, are going to have their citizen voices drowned out by corporate campaign contributions. That is not a representative democracy. We've got to fix it.
Well, talk about the explosion of money. You're not going to be able to raise as much as your opponent on November 4, right?
I wouldn't imagine.
You wouldn't imagine.
He's an incumbent who serves on Financial Services Committee.
Okay. Does that mean then that he has a lot more access to campaign donations than someone like you?
Well, the thing is, we have a really broad base of support. We've got thousands of individual contributors, but the vast majority of them are giving in increments of under $50, $25 to $50. And that means that, these are working class people who can't afford to write me a check for $2,600 or $5,000 at a time. And it's tilted the entire system to a point where the wealthiest among us have undue influence over our government, because it makes it easier for us to go straight to the wealthiest to get those campaign contributions. Sean Duffy is on Financial Services, as I said. His top campaign contributors come from Wall Street, come from Republican leadership PACs, and they come from industries like Koch Industries and groups like Americans for Prosperity. I don't believe that those groups have the best interests in mind when it comes to working class people and our ability to make ends meet and put food on the table.
The 7th Congressional District is huge.
Yeah.
And often voters, you're finding out, can't determine what's a federal issue and a state issue. So are you being asked your position on mining, the mine?
Oh, yes. Yes.
And what is it? We're talking here about Gogebi's proposed iron ore, open pit mine for Ashland and Iron County. And
that is something that's evolving even as recently as this week. I get asked about it all the time. The fact is, I've been involved in that issue from very early on in my role as a city councilor, and also just somebody who lives there and drinks the water and breathes the air. But the argument in favor of the mine was for job creation. But the fact is, our economic drivers in Ashland and Bayfield counties are dependent on things like, and to some extent Iron County as well, on things like forestry, fisheries, tourism, outdoor recreation, all things that end up getting put at risk as a result of that project going wrong. And what we know is that this company cannot be trusted, that the rules that they bought at the state level are insufficient to protect the environment and the communities that surround the area. And now that the tribe has gone to, the Bad River tribe has gone to the EPA and requested the authority to regulate water quality, then the project may be completely off the table once that decision comes down.
Are you saying that there's no way to safely open a mine in the 7th Congressional District that wouldn't threaten the wouldn't threaten the environment? Excuse me.
I don't know about in the entire 7th Congressional District, but this particular place has such complex hydrology. As Gogebic Taconite recently said, that the wetlands were a bigger issue than they had originally anticipated. But it's there are certain places where it's just not appropriate, and this is one of those places.
Did you welcome the statement by Gogebic that they may only mine in Iron and not Ashland counties?
To me, that's them playing to the politics of the situation, to be honest. And the fact is that even if they mine the section in Iron County, that's still largely the watershed that affects Ashland County and the Lake Superior basin there.
You must also be asked about frac sand mining, even though somewhat it's a state issue. Your position on that?
Well, I think from what I'm hearing from folks throughout the district, they have serious concerns, especially about air quality as a result of those things, but also the impacts on local communities. The fact is, these are huge extraction-based companies that come to a town, and yeah, they have some jobs for a number of years, but the fact is, that's a boom and bust economic driver, and they have to find other ways to make sure that these communities can survive once that operation is done, and they have this mess to clean up.
Position on the Keystone Pipeline.
The Keystone Pipeline, to me, is one more example of propping up the fossil fuel industry artificially. The fact is that, one, they say, again, it's about job creation, but it's going to create the temporary construction jobs and then only result in 35 permanent jobs. The point of a pipeline is automation. And it's going to contribute to climate change. It's an export pipeline. So it's not necessarily helping the energy independence of this country. Why not reinvest that money in things that can help us actually become energy independent for the future?
And your position on the Obama administration's proposed 30% reduction nationally by 2030 in carbon emissions?
I think that it's long overdue. We're already almost halfway there from what I understand, because it's set at the 2005 threshold. And the fact is, we've got to start doing something to spur more research and development in those other technologies that are going to be cleaner if we're going to have any hope of addressing the serious challenges ahead of us.
I was fascinated because the Wisconsin Taxpayer Alliance about 3 months ago predicted that the number of adults in Bayfield and Price County were going to be dropping 35 and 30% within the next, I think, 20 or 25 years. What's a way, as a member of Congress, to prevent that exodus of working age residents in those two counties? And those were the counties that would lose the most, according to the Taxpayer Alliance.
It's got to do with economic development, which in my mind, living in Ashland and having served on our Economic Development Committee and our Public Works Committee, I understand that one of our most inhibiting factors is the lack of adequate infrastructure for commerce. If we can actually reinvest in our country as a whole for modern infrastructure and to make sure that we're putting money into our education and training programs, that means that we can have the solid foundation for commerce to build on and the training and education to make sure that we have an adequate workforce to meet those jobs.
Okay. Although the budget picture has improved somewhat for both Medicare and Social Security, they're still on track to go bankrupt. How would you fix them?
To me, that is, I kind of reject that framework. The fact is, they are, one, that both have extended their solvency, or the Medicare's solvency has been extended since the implementation of the Affordable Care Act.
Yes, it has.
I would suggest that we raise or scrap the cap on Social Security entirely. Right now, the 900 wealthiest people in this country only pay Social Security tax for the first 2 days of the calendar year. If they were paying the same rate as everyone else, that makes Social Security solvent at least through 2050.
Okay. Finally, you talked about some differences with Sean Duffy, your opponent on November 4. Any other PSs on those?
I would say that, one, I'm an advocate for women's rights. I think that women should be paid the same amount of money for doing the same work. That's something that Sean Duffy has voted against. I think that we ought to trust women to make their own family planning and health care decisions. Sean Duffy disagrees. I think that it's time for us to really look at ourselves as a country and understand that we are literally crumbling, from whether it's our roads, our bridges, our water infrastructure, our power grid. We have to invest in these things, and we have people out of work. Why not put them to work rebuilding our country so that we can stay competitive in a global sense?
Kelly, thanks very much. Kelly Westlund of Ashland is a Democratic candidate in the 7th Congressional District. Kelly, thanks for talking to Wisconsin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.